What's going on, friends? Logan Myerz back here for Cinephellas.com, talking about the brand new episode of The Outsider, one of my new favorite TV shows of 2020, adapted from the Stephen King novel. This time around, episode 4, we have Andrew Bernstein returning to direct the episode. He directed episode 3, which was okay. It was a bit slow, but definitely building the story and this atmosphere and this universe for these characters, what's going to happen next, and it all having to do with this hooded figure, the man. In episode 4, we're introduced to Heath. From the last episode, he was the child killer that ended up committing suicide in prison. And then you had Holly Gibney's character, Cynthia Erivo, really fantastic in this show. Really great actress as her investigating this as a private investigator, and what that all has to do with Terry Maitland's character, how this all connects. So the introduction of this episode, we see Heath with this woman at a diner, not really sure what that's all about since he's dead. And throughout the episode, we find out who that woman is, exactly how it's connected to Heath. And we find out throughout the episode what this creature or this supernatural presence is, and it's El Coco. There's a lot of mystery and mythology behind it. Essentially, El Coco, or this hooded figure. So El Coco basically feeds on children. He's a grief eater as well, so all the grief surrounding the death of a child. As we remember, the Peterson kid being found dead, all having to do with Terry Maitland as the killer. The family, the Peterson family surrounding this young boy that was killed, they ended up dying as well. The parents, the brother, so it's a grief eater. So it has to do with the supernatural presence being El Coco. And Holly trying to crack this case with Terry Maitland, how it's connected to other killers in other places, and really trying to figure out what happened that night, if, you know, Terry being at two places at once. So Ben Mendelsohn's character's not really much going on this episode, which is fine. I really like how Holly Gibney, Cynthia Erivo, is really leading the series at this point. She's really the focal point. Another great aspect in this episode has to do with scratching. So Terry Maitland, they're looking at the tapes from the strip club. We can see that Terry's talking to the strip club owner, and he like scratches them. They like kind of zoom in, and you can see that. So maybe that the scratching has to do with marking the next killer, and the El Coco is taking over that body, essentially. So we're trying to figure that out. Really cool, supernatural, spooky aspect about this episode, which I really appreciated and I really loved about it. Also in the episode, we have Holly Gibney talking to this lady in New York, which goes back to the beginning part of the episode. Another killer in New York killed a young child, and going back to El Coco again, and she's like, yeah, I didn't do this. How can I do this? I wouldn't kill a child. It really dives into the mythology more of El Coco having to do with this young boy that was murdered, this killer that's sitting in prison doing time for something that she didn't do, according to her, and then the kid's family, it's the ultimate demise, they end up dying too. So it's a lot of great elements that are all connecting to all these different cases, and, you know, Holly Gibney is really trying to get to the bottom of it, why and how this is all connected, and if it has to do with this character being El Coco. One of my favorite parts of the episode is Holly Gibney really investigating El Coco, doing a late night Google search, finding a whole bunch of spooky images like old paintings and what it all means. And when she's finding out about the El Coco, they call it, which is obviously a nod to other Stephen King work. Pennywise the Clown, it's not a person, it's an it. So I thought that was a really cool nod, and I love how they kind of set that up. And this episode really dived into the horror movie elements compared to other episodes, compared to like it being a crime investigation, true crime kind of thing. It was more horror with the setting up of El Coco and finding more of the backstory of what this thing is, or this it. So I thought it was a really cool setup in this episode. We're getting more backstory of El Coco. It's basically the title of the episode, and learning more exactly what it is. What it does is feeding on children, and it's a grief eater that people surrounding that person that dies, they end up dying too, stays alive by feeding off people in their most vulnerable states when somebody passes away. So we have Jack Hoskins. He's taken over, as we remember from the last episode, in the barn. It feels like the man, the El Coco, is inside of him and doing some weird, strange things. And essentially Jack is like picking up food, and he had like a deer carcass, and they put it out in the middle of the woods, and it looks like it's for El Coco, it's for the man. He's like feeding it, which is really weird. It's like a smorgasbord of like random food and a dead carcass hanging out in the middle of the woods. I'm not really sure what they're going to do with Jack's character, but I'm sure it's not going to end too well. But overall, I had a really great time with episode 4, The Outsider, directed by Andrew Bernstein. A bit of a slower burn again, like episode 3. I really loved how they set up the whole backstory of finding out about El Coco feeding on children. It's a grief eater, and Holly Gibney investigating this and finding out more about it and trying to connect to the dots to all these different killings. and how they're going to crack this case for Terry Maitland, if he really did it or not. And I really can't wait to see what happens in the upcoming episodes, if they're really going to crack this case with Terry Maitland, what it all means, and what it all has to do with El Coco. So overall, I'm going to give episode 4 of The Outsider a 3.5 out of 5 El Coco hair pieces. So what did you guys think of episode 4? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? What do you guys think about El Coco? What does it all mean? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe. This is Logan Myerz signing out with El Coco. Oh, he's dreamy. Until the next video review. Cheers!